We're going to get started. Good evening, everybody. Everybody find their seats, and we're going to get started. Thank you for joining us tonight. We're looking forward to a lively and informative debate between the candidates for State Representative for Farmington and House District 21. My name is Lance Goldberg, and I'm a Social Studies and Government teacher here at the high school, as well as the faculty advisor for the Political Action Club, a nonpartisan club dedicated to increasing student participation in the community and the political process. I want to thank Superintendent Greeter and Dr. Silva for their support of our club, and we look forward to more events in the future, including our state senator debate next Tuesday, October 30th, between Beth Bai and Phil Chabot, and I hope you all can join us on Tuesday as well. We're also very happy to announce that these events are co-sponsored with the Farmington High School Student Council. A very big welcome to the students who are here with us tonight. Thank you for coming. Remember, this is our community, and you have real power to make an impact on what happens here, especially when you actively participate in getting involved in the community. You are an incredibly thoughtful and innovative group of students, and we need your voice to be heard to ensure that Farmington continues to be an outstanding and thriving community in the future. I also want to thank some familiar faces in the audience, including many Farmington High School faculty members, other candidates running for local positions, as well as our elected politicians. Thank you for joining us tonight, and thank you for your public service to the town of Farmington. I'd like to welcome Mike D'Amico and Chris Forster. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming by and participating in our debate. I don't want to forget to thank the tremendous custodial staff we have here at the high school, led by Vic Mashad and Keith Todd, for their assistance and their staff. We could not do it without their help. Tonight's a nonpartisan debate, and all the questions originated from students at Farmington High School. Thank you again for coming tonight. Now, I'd like to introduce you to our moderator for this evening. Please welcome Farmington High School senior, Pei Chao Zul.
Good evening. I'm Pei Chao Zul, and I'm a senior at Farmington High School and a member of the Political Action Club. I will be your moderator tonight. We're gathered here tonight for a debate between Democratic State Representative Mike D'Amico and Republican challenger Chris Forster. The debate will begin with 2-minute opening statements by each candidate. Then we'll move on to questions. There are 8 questions. 6 have been created by the Political Action Club. 2 were developed from student-submitted questions. And Executive President of the Student Council, Kiran Mangla, will ask these questions after 4 Political Action Club questions have been asked. Tonight, when I ask a candidate a question, he will have up to 1 minute to give an answer. His opponent will then have up to 1 minute to respond. Subsequently, the candidate to whom the question was initially asked can provide an additional response of up to 1 minute in length. And finally, his opponent will have the opportunity to provide a second response no longer than 1 minute. And following the question and answer portion of the debate, each candidate will provide a 2-minute closing statement. And there are 2 timekeepers, seniors Peggy Zul and Jessica Ashton, to enforce the time limits. And a pre-debate coin toss has determined that Mr. D'Amico will provide the first opening statement and will be asked the first question. Mr. Forster will deliver the final closing statement. And we hope that this will be a productive and engaging debate. So let's begin. Okay, so we'll begin with the first portion of the debate, which are the opening statements. So each candidate may give an opening statement to tell us why you are interested in being Farmington's representative in the General Assembly, and the statements may take up to 2 minutes. So yeah, Mr. D'Amico, you will deliver the first opening statement.
Thank you very much. Thank you to you and to all the students who organized this and put it all together. invitation. I appreciate your interest, and I think the whole community is well served by the interest that you show. So my name is Mike D'Amico. I'm the state representative for the 21st Assembly District, which is about 90% of Farmington, although not all of Farmington. I've had this position for about 6 years, first elected in the year 2012. Prior to that, I served on the Farmington Town Council for 7 years, learned quite a bit about town government, and I am now learning and participating quite a bit in state government. I have always believed, and I continue to believe, that the sole purpose for government is to make people's lives better. That is what I do, that is what I always strive to do. So government makes people's lives better in many different ways. Once you get elected to an office, you begin to realize that there are all kinds of needs and problems out there that need to be addressed, and they need to be addressed in a fair manner and in a manner that is not overburdensome to the taxpayers. So I have always believed that we need to provide good services, whether it's at the local level or the state level. We need to provide good services that people need and want and expect, and provide them at a reasonable cost to the taxpayers. It is a balancing act, and don't let anyone tell you any differently. It is a balancing act, and it's tough to find that proper balance sometimes, but that is what we need to do. So we are all aware that we are in a state that has some fiscal problems that date back to many decades, probably 3 or 4 decades. So to me, the key issue is, how do we solve those fiscal problems and still provide good services? That's what I have endeavored to do. That's what I'll continue to endeavor to do.
Thank you. I'd first like to thank Mr. Goldberg, as well as the Political Action Club, for hosting tonight's debate. And I'd like to thank my opponent for agreeing to debate. I think it's very important to have a robust conversation on the issues before individuals vote. I'm often asked why I decided to run for office. I have a great career, great family. Why I put myself out there for a position like state representative. And for me, like most of you, you probably wonder what the future holds for you and your family in Connecticut. You wonder if your home in Farmington is a part of that future. You wonder if your kids' futures and their careers are a part of your future in Connecticut. Connecticut is struggling. We have one of the worst business climates in the nation. We have one of the worst tax burdens in the nation. We have one of the worst unfunded pensions in the nation. One of the first debt per capita in the nation. Connecticut is losing. We're losing people, we're losing jobs, we're losing property values. And I've talked to thousands of people so far this election cycle. And too many of our opponents, or our neighbors, are losing hope. I'm running for state representative because I want to focus on creating fiscal stability. I want to focus on tackling government costs. I want to create an environment in which businesses can thrive again. I want to prioritize our spending on our communities, not on special interests in Hartford. We also need elected individuals with the right experience to address our fiscal problems. I'm the controller for the Connecticut State Colleges and Universities. I have a degree in economics, a master of public administration, I'm a certified public finance officer, and I have over a decade of experience balancing budgets, improving accountability, and focusing on implementing efficiencies that have saved millions across organizations. That is why I'm running for state representative. Thank you.
And now we'll move on to the question and answer portion of the debate. So, Mr. D'Amico, you'll be asked the first question, and and this question is pertaining to your tenure at the General Assembly. So, specifically, what measures have you supported during your time in the General Assembly that have benefited the people of Farmington?
Well, thank you for the question. I think the most important thing that I've done, that any representative can do when you represent a community, is to make sure that that community is well taken care of fiscally at the state legislative level. So in spite of pressures, in virtually every one of the 6 years that I've been there, in spite of pressures to decrease and severely limit the amount of state grant money municipal aid money, education money that comes to our town. I have resisted that pressure. I have argued with leadership, and I have argued with the administration to make sure that municipal funding for both Farmington and all the communities in Connecticut is not cut to a severe degree, because that would just result in an increase in property taxes for any community, and it just shifts the burden of cost onto the municipality, which is unacceptable.
And yeah, you may provide a 1-minute response to that answer.
Okay. So we all know budgeting is about setting priorities. And I've always said that our community should be one of the priorities in our state house. The fact of the matter is, our town has lost $2 million since my appointment took office. Our education funding declined 53% since he took office. Even if this year's budgeted 6% increase does materialize, we're still 50% less in funding than when my appointment took office. We need to prioritize our communities over special interests in Hartford. Millions go to Hartford every day. We just took on $500 million of their debt for their failures. Now we're all paying taxes for their failures, for their policy issues in Hartford. We need to prioritize our communities. We need to advocate for our community. A state representative advocate for our district.
And Mr. Cho, you may provide a 1-minute response.
Thank you. Well, I'm glad that my opponent acknowledged the fact that we're going to be receiving approximately a 6% increase in education cost sharing money this year. That is accurate. It is a 6% increase, and that didn't happen by accident. That happened because myself and the other members of the Farmington Legislative Delegation went and fought and made sure that that happened. So my opponent talks of priorities. We have many priorities in the state of Connecticut, and because we have those priorities, and in particular we have the priority regarding our own municipality, because of that priority, I have made sure, as I mentioned earlier, I have made sure that in spite of attempts to gut municipal aid and education aid, that has not happened over the last 6 years because of the knowledge that that would just cause tremendous property tax increases for Farmington and for the other municipalities who are similarly affected. So I have fought to make sure that that did not happen, and I appreciate that my opponent acknowledged that. Thank you.
Mr. Forster, you may provide a 1-minute response.
Yeah, so over a year ago, when the legislature was working on their biennial budget, the Democratic caucus was so used to passing a budget on their own. The fact of the matter is there's a tie in our Senate, a tie between Republicans and Democrats. And there's only a 6-seat difference in the General Assembly. The Democrats could not pass a budget because they had cuts to municipal aid. Their caucus would not vote for it. We were 3 months into the fiscal year before any budget got passed, and that was because they finally reached out to the Republicans, and the Republicans advocated for community funding. That's how it got put back.
Thank you. And the next question is for Mr. Forster. How would you create enticing career opportunities to incentivize young people to remain within the state?
Yeah, so everyone wants the same thing. They want jobs, they want opportunity, they want careers. As we mentioned, we're struggling in our state. We're struggling with jobs, businesses are leaving. We need to have those opportunities available to students. We also have to have job training opportunities within our community colleges. We've struggled with financial appropriations from the state. We're proud to be implementing advanced manufacturing centers throughout our community college system to offer exciting opportunities in tech and manufacturing. And these are what the companies are looking for. They're looking for skilled workers. So there's opportunities available to these individuals. It all starts there. It all starts with education. It all starts with creating an attractive economy in which businesses want to come to Connecticut and grow.
Mr. D'Amico, you may provide a 1-minute response.
Yes, again, I'm glad that my opponent acknowledged the advanced manufacturing centers that we have set up throughout the state of Connecticut. So under the leadership, Democratic leadership, I'm happy to say, we made a commitment to align what is taught in the community colleges, in the technical schools, the VOTEC schools, to align what is taught there with the jobs that are available here in the state of Connecticut. There are high-tech manufacturing jobs that are going wanting for lack of trained individuals to fill them. And we recognize that problem, and we are making progress and have made considerable progress in that regard. So this is already happening. This is something that the legislature recognized and the legislature took action on. So I'm happy to say that we're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, I would just add that the other thing that young professionals are looking for is affordable cost of living. Our property taxes are extremely high in our state. Our other tax burdens on individuals and income taxes are extremely high in our state. So we have to look for ways to tackle our government costs and drive down that burden on our future generations.
Yes, thank you. Yes, there is no question that we would all like to have lower taxes. The problem is with lower taxes, you end up with lower services. So you have to make some choices, you have to make some policy decisions. It's easy when you are a candidate and you don't hold office, it's easy to talk about, we need to do this, we need to do that. When you're actually elected to the legislature, you have to make policy decisions, and those affect what happens in the state of Connecticut overall. So yes, we would all like lower taxes, but we also enjoy many benefits and many services that the state of Connecticut provides, and without taxes, we wouldn't be able to provide those services. So again, it is a balancing act, and I think that we have done, considering the difficult economic circumstances, I think we've done a pretty good job of providing that good balance, and we'll continue to do so.
Thank you. And the next question will be for Mr. D'Amico. What is your position on implementing tolls in Connecticut, and why?
Thank you for the question. First of all, just to let everyone know, and I'm sure most people know, but not everyone knows, that if tolls are reinstituted in Connecticut, they will not be the old-fashioned tolls, from 30 years ago, where you had to stop and throw money into the bucket. We all know that we have much higher and better technology now. We drive to Massachusetts and New Jersey and New York, and we go through tolls, and we pay tolls without even knowing it. And that is what will happen in Connecticut if and when tolls are reinstituted in Connecticut. It will be a much easier process, much less cumbersome. Now, the fact is that all the states around us have been driving on our roads for the last 35 years, yes, 35 years, without paying a nickel in tolls to the state of Connecticut. They have been using us. Meanwhile, we drive in their states, Massachusetts, New Jersey, New York, and we pay significant tolls. So fairness alone would dictate that we need to take a good hard look at this, and that's what the legislature will do. We'll take a hard look at it and institute it in a way that puts most of the burden on the out-of-state drivers, hopefully, rather than the in-state drivers.
We already have one of the highest tax burdens in the country. We don't need another tax. We don't need tolls. We have dedicated taxes already to support transportation. We have the gas tax and the petroleum tax. And by dedicating that revenue, it's projected, in a special transportation fund, it's projected that we'll have a $500 million surplus for transportation costs. We don't need a toll tax. It's just another tax that they can take from us and use for other purposes. We need to use the taxes that we're already gaining for what it was meant for to begin with.
Well, there are a couple things to say to that. First of all, the gas tax is going to continue to decline. As we all know, we have more fuel-efficient vehicles, more electric vehicles that people are buying more and more every day. So to rely on the gas tax does not seem to me to be a practical thing to do for that reason. More people are driving electric vehicles. As far as putting a burden on people, other states have figured out a way, and we can figure out a way to make sure that the majority of the burden of whatever toll revenue is collected from the out-of-state drivers, rather than put the burden on the in-state drivers. Other states have done it, and they have done it legally, and we can find out a way to do it ourselves. So we have transportation infrastructure problems, as we all know. Somebody has to pay for it. Somehow they need to be, the infrastructure needs to be paid for, and this is one possible way to do it, and the legislature will look into it and see if that's what we decide to do.
The other piece of this is issuing debt for things that we shouldn't be issuing debt for. The other party issued debt to pay for a $10 million toll study. This is $10 million that we're going to be paying interest on over 20 years. This is a one-time cost. It's not a capital investment. It's unacceptable. These are the type of decisions that are being made, and they need to stop.
Thank you. The next question is for Mr. Forster. How would you shrink the state's deficit while also ensuring that people will not be hurt by a reduction in services?
Yeah, so when we talk about the deficit, we have to tackle the costs. As mentioned already, we have one of the highest tax burdens in the country. We have to look at our cost structure, and not only short-term costs, but the long-term costs. So there's three things I like to talk about. First is we have to stop issuing debt for things that we're not supposed to be issuing debt for. This increases the annual amount we have to pay for our debt service. If we reduce the amount of debt we're issuing, which has been astronomical over the past 4 years, it will reduce that burden on the budget, the annual budget. Secondly, we have to look at our pension systems. We have to keep the promises that have already been made, but we have to look to the future and shift future state workforce to a defined contribution plan or a 401k style plan. This will reduce the burden in the long run. And the third, we have to look at our government agencies and how they're structured and how we can best appropriately meet those needs and those priorities. We have to look for ways to modernize these agencies.
Well, once again, I appreciate that my opponent acknowledges something that we've already done at the legislature. We have made significant inroads in paying down the unfunded pension liability that hangs over our heads, that has been in existence for about 30 or 40 years now. So we have made progress in paying down the liability, and we will continue to do that. However, a promise is a promise. So people are owed these pensions, and they will be paid these pensions. Going forward, again, as my opponent acknowledged, we have made significant changes to the benefits that will be paid to future employees. We recognize that we needed to do that, and we took action in the last legislative session to do exactly that. So we are already doing the things that my opponent insists that we need to do. So I guess we're a little bit ahead of the curve on that one. And I will simply say that we'll continue to do things in a responsible manner as we have been for the last several years.
Our unfunded pension liability is growing. It's not shrinking, despite these efforts. If you take the net liability of our state, it equals $53,600 for every taxpayer in our state. It's unacceptable. Now, as I was mentioning in my last comments, we have to look at our state agencies, look for ways to modernize them, and we have to look at their missions. Are they properly achieving their missions? Are there ways to partner with third-party vendors to provide for fee-based services, like at the DMV, expanding those programs, and driving down the overall cost burden for our state?
Well, I can assure everyone that we are constantly looking for ways to improve efficiency in government. As you may be well aware, we have downsized government quite significantly over the last 6 or 7 years, at some pain, at considerable pain, actually. You can't provide services at the same level to residents when you cut somewhere in the neighborhood of 10,000 state jobs, or you let them go by way of attrition. You just aren't going to get the same level of service. But we have done it because the economic times have demanded it. But I can assure everyone here that we are constantly looking for ways to make government more efficient, to do things in a more cost-effective manner, and we will continue to do that.
So next, we'll go to the executive president of the Farmington High School Student Council, and he will ask 2 questions that have been developed from student-submitted questions.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kieran Mangla, and I'm the president of the Student Council here at Farmington High. I'd like to thank Mr. Forster and Mr. D'Amico for coming out tonight and having this debate with us. For this debate, Student Council's involvement focused on surveying students to see what topics or questions they would like to hear more about from our candidates. After polling students' interests, Student Council chose 2 student-inspired questions to ask. Student Council also has a voter registration table over there on the other side of the cafeteria, which we are working with the Town of Farmington voter registrar to register as many voters as we can before this election. You can register at any age, it doesn't matter. So after this debate, I would encourage you to come over and register if you haven't already. So on to our first question, which is going to be for Mr. D'Amico. As high schoolers, we are very concerned with our safety of our learning environments. After some of the major tragedies that have happened in our country, and even in our own state over the past few years, students would like to know how they are being protected while at school. What will you do to make our school and other schools across Connecticut safer?
Thank you for the question, Karan. I will tell you that we have already done some significant things to make students safer. In the wake of the Sandy Hook tragedy, we made sure to appropriate a significant amount of